Please go to finneganswakenotes.net for a full explanation of the text, and please don't forget to hit the like button.
Welcome to episode 28 of the Reading Finnegans Wake in 200 Sessions podcast, where we analyze Finnegans Wake by James Joyce 3 pages at a time. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment to support us.
And today, we're really diving deep. We've got pages 90.34 through 93.21 of Finnegans Wake.
Yeah, just 3 pages. But as always with Joyce, it feels like a whole universe packed in there. We're landing right in the middle of this wild courtroom scene.
Absolutely. It's the climax, really, of this particular trial sequence for the father figure, HCE. He's appearing here as Pegger Festy.
Pegger Festy. We'll definitely need to unpack that name later.
Mm-hmm.
But this is his moment under the spotlight, right? His big defense, or maybe his big collapse.
It's both, I think. It's this spectacular, incredibly messy performance. The whole thing starts looking like a trial, but, it dissolves almost immediately into something much bigger.
Bigger how?
Well, it becomes this exploration of duality, of opposites, of shame, sacrifice, even Irish history and mythology. It sets up so much of what's to come.
So our mission today, for you listening, is to wade through this. It's like linguistic quicksand, honestly. We want to pull out the main threads, the jokes, because they're always jokes, right?
They're always deeply buried, multilingual jokes, usually.
Exactly. And the sort of philosophical ideas underpinning it all. So especially this dynamic between Festy, the accused father figure,
and his opposite number, this character WP, who is basically Shem, the artist's son.
Okay, so the key themes we're tracking are this trial of HCE as Festy, the recurring pig motif, Pat Pig, and the sow.
Which is huge. And then this idea of the law of opposites, which Joyce borrows heavily from Giordano Bruno.
And we can't forget the leap year girls, Issy and her cohort, who pop up and play quite a role towards the end of the section.
They do. They introduce that feminine principle that mediates the male conflict. It's dense, but incredibly structured once you start looking closely.
Right, let's get into it. Part 1, the courtroom and Pegger Festy's performance. This kicks off around line 90.34.
And it kicks off with a bang, or rather a string of insults.
Meretrix and oinquish. It doesn't exactly sound like all rise, does it?
Not remotely. It's this incredibly compressed blast of multilingual abuse. You've got French Mired, shit. German Dreck, meaning filth.
Okay.
Then blended with Irish Meretrix, which means prostitute, and oinsich, harlot, or maybe foolish woman.
Wow, so filth, prostitution, foolishness.
And the oinsia part seems to be a kind of bog Latin for Ireland itself, maybe mixed with anguish, so the whole feeling is just disgust and misery directed at Ireland, setting the stage for this trial.
So the atmosphere is already toxic before we even get going. What about the judges? The text says the bench is perplexedly uncondemnatory.
Yeah, they're confused and sort of unable to condemn. Joyce layers and puns here, of course. There's Punic judgeship suggesting treachery, like the Punic Wars, deceit.
Contrasting with
Pune judgeship, which just means junior judges. So they're treacherous and junior, sort of low-ranking. And they're struggling with penal law.
And penal law has a specific historical weight in Ireland, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It directly references the penal laws enacted against Irish Catholics in the 17th and 18th centuries. So you've got these compromised, maybe deceitful junior judges trying to apply this historically oppressive legal system. They're basically set up to fail from the start. No objectivity possible here.
Okay, so the court itself is corrupt or incompetent. Now let's meet the defendant properly. 91.01 calls him the senior king of all, Pegger Festy. What's in that name?
Oh, it's loaded. Pegger immediately makes you think of someone who pegs or throws stones.
Which is the crime he's often accused of, right?
Yeah.
The incident in Phoenix Park.
Exactly. It also suggests a pegger, as in a heavy drinker, someone who drinks pegs of brandy, maybe. And then, crucially, there's the Hebrew word pegger.
Which means?
Corpse or carcass. So this senior king is simultaneously a potential criminal, a drunk and already dead or decaying. It captures HCE's multifaceted fallen nature perfectly.
And the description of him reinforces this fallen state. They had to remove the outer layer of stucco muck. He's literally covered in, muck.
Yes, stucco muck, like he's been plastered in mud and filth. It's a fantastic physical image for all the slander and rumors that stick to HCE throughout the book. You know that saying, throw enough mud and some will stick?
Here it's literal.
Exactly. So the court has to scrape off this layer of accusation and rumor to get to the man underneath, leaving him with barefacedness. He's exposed, raw, covered in shame, ready to make his defense.
Okay, so how does this muck-covered, potentially dead king begin his defense? At 91.03, he doesn't just speak, he gives a loud burst of poesy through a Brythonic interpreter.
Right, and this posy is another classic Joycean joke. It looks like incredibly ancient, obscure Irish, or maybe Welsh since it's Brythonic, P-Celtic.
With pist hus as fira bura mer hirosmus. Sounds impressive.
It does,
Yeah.
but if you sound it out phonetically, treating it as English spelled like Irish, it just, with best wishes for a very Merry Christmas.
Seriously. That's it.
That's it. So his grand poetic opening is actually this completely banal, slightly inappropriate festive greeting. The Brythonic interpreter thing just adds another layer of deliberate obfuscation, maybe suggesting his defense is archaic, irrelevant, or just hard to understand.
So after that anticlimax, what's the substance of his testimony? He swears an oath, right?
He does, and it's a very significant oath. He swears by the relics of the bones of the story Bouchel that was 8B Cleopatra, the sow.
Okay, a boy eaten by a sow named Cleopatra. This has to be about the pig motif.
It's absolutely central. This connects to a few things. There's a legend about St. Patrick resuscitating a boy who'd been killed and eaten by pigs. A miracle story.
Right, rebirth, resurrection.
Yes, but the sow here is Cleopatra. Patrick mixed with Cleopatra, maybe? But more importantly, it plugs directly into Joyce's own famous, rather bitter statement about Ireland.
You mean the one?
Ireland is the old sow that eats her farrow, eats its own young.
So Festy swearing on this eaten boy in the sow.
Yeah.
He's invoking this symbol of Ireland itself as a self-consuming, perhaps treacherous entity.
Exactly. The pig in Finnegans' wake is consistently tied to sacrifice HCE himself, is often the pig, but also to Ireland as this destructive mother figure. So his oath is steeped in this national mythology of betrayal and sacrifice. It's not a simple oath at all.
And it connects to Festy himself later being called the Swiney Prize, doesn't it?
It does. He's marked as the sacrificial pig right from the start of his testimony.
Okay, so after the poetry and the pig oath, what's his actual defense against, say, theft? It seems pretty weak. He says, if live thurkles followed him about, sure that was no steal.
Yeah, if live turkeys followed him about, sure that was no steal.
Mm-hmm.
This is pure farce. It's apparently based on an old vaudeville or ethnic joke, often told about a black man accused of stealing chickens who claims they just followed him home.
So it's a known flimsy excuse, a likely story.
Totally. He's using this low comedy trope to brush off the accusation. It shows his defense has no real substance. He's relying on bluster and borrowed jokes.
And then the big one, the stone throwing. He denies throwing a stone either before or after he was born.
Which is a pretty comprehensive denial, and it goes right to the heart of the matter, because Pegger means stone thrower, and the stone tree dichotomy is fundamental to the whole book. HCE is the stone principle, in opposition to the tree principle.
So denying the stone is like denying his own nature.
Pretty much, and there's a fascinating little detail here in the description of where this deposition comes from. It mentions 4 senses: eye bold, ear big, nose naving, gut throat.
Sight, hearing, smell, and taste, or the gut.
Right. But the sense of touch is missing.
Huh. Why is that significant?
Well, maybe it hints that the crime itself, the touch of the stone, is metaphorical based on rumor, not physical contact. But it also, I think, subtly sets up a contrast with his son, WP, who we later find out has his own sensory deficiencies. It's a little structural echo.
Interesting. Okay, so Festy's denied everything with poetry, pig oaths, and bad jokes. Then he seems to change tack, launching into this rather grand, pompous speech starting around 91.13.
He does. He suddenly elevates himself, comparing himself to Mark Antony, King Arthur, even pagan deities like Baal and Astarte. He throws in the Labour Party for good measure. It's this mishmash of heroic and political references.
And he makes this claim. An Englishman was as good as any cantonadal. Irishman versus continental.
Yeah, the classic Irish assertion of equality, maybe masking an underlying insecurity. It's the voice of the islander standing up to the mainland, perhaps reflecting Joyce's own complex position as an Irish exile in Europe.
But the climax of this speech is another oath, and this one feels weightier. He says if he's lying, he hopes to perish by the market stake before the dorming of the mawn.
This is crucial. Perish by the market stake. Perish by the market stake.
The stake, as in...
As in being burned at the stake. And market stake points directly to Giordano Bruno.
The philosopher Joyce was obsessed with.
Exactly. Bruno was burned at the stake in 1600 in the Campo de' Fiori in Rome, the Field of Flowers, which was and still is a market square.
So Festy is comparing himself to Bruno, the ultimate heretic martyr who died for his ideas about opposites and infinity.
Precisely. He's aligning himself with this major philosophical figure. It signals that the trial isn't just about some minor indecency anymore. It's escalating into a cosmic philosophical realm. Bruno's ideas are about to take center stage.
And he keeps swearing these big oaths. He swears he'll never see Tir na Nog, the Celtic paradise.
Right, the land of eternal youth.
Or wheel or wind.
Yeah.
The inexhaustible wassail horn taught of Iskibausch.
That's quite a mouthful.
Inexhaustible. It sounds as long and rambling as the career he's boasting about. It's a fantastic word, and it blends myth and reality perfectly.
How so?
Well, you have the wassail horn, the inexhaustible drinking horn from mythology. Think King Arthur, think of Valhalla, these eternal feasts. But then it's filled with a tot of Iskibausch, Uspitha, Gaelic for whiskey, so it's this grand mythological symbol immediately brought down to earth with Irish booze.
Classic Joyce. And he mentions his long career, referencing the four courts in Dublin. Yeah, he talks about his exchequered career, playing on the word exchequer, one of the divisions of the four courts, along with King's Bench and Chancery, which are also implicitly there. So he's weaving his personal history into the legal and mythological tapestry.
But just as he's reaching these rhetorical heights, his actions betray him. He tries to meet the sign of the cross.
Yes, this half-kneed castle knocker, as he's called, a great image of clumsy deference, attempts the sign, but does it cythogwishly.
Cythogwishly? What does that mean?
It's an Anglo-Irish word, siotogach, meaning left-handed or awkward, clumsy, but the way he does it is the giveaway.
Oh.
Roman Catholics make the sign top to bottom, then left to right. The Orthodox tradition is top to bottom, then right to left. Festy does it the Orthodox way.
Ah. So in this moment of supposed piety, he reveals he's, what?
Yeah.
Not really captain, an outsider.
It reviews his alien status, as the text says. Whether he's deliberately aligning with the East or just fundamentally clumsy and getting his cultural signals mixed up, it undermines his whole performance of belonging. It's a fatal slip.
And this slip seems to break something in him, or in the proceedings. He gets excited and bursts into Russian, Roshi, and Strat.
Yeah, very well, good and
Yeah.
healthy. Apparently common Russian slang from the World War I era. His linguistic control completely shatters. He's lost his English, mangled his Irish, fumbled his Latin piety, and now he's spouting Russian.
And the reaction is laughter. Electors.
Electors. A great blend of yelling, laughter, and maybe the German Gelächter for laughter. The courtroom descends into chaos.
The text calls the whole scene an olla podrida.
Which is Spanish for rotten pot, basically a stew made of leftovers, a real mess.
Mm-hmm.
But it was famously used by D.H. Lawrence as a criticism of Joyce's early work-in-progress fragments. Joyce throws the insult right back here.
So the trial is now just a disgusting mess.
Yeah.
And Festy, the testifier, he sort of collapses. He reluctantly, the text says, joins in the laughter, but with ladylike indecorum. It's not dignified laughter. It's helpless, slightly hysterical, contributing to the general squalor. His defense has completely imploded into farce and filth. Okay, so that's the end of Festy's performance. Part 2 seems to shift gears dramatically, moving from courtroom chaos to philosophy, around 92.06.
It does. It uses the noise itself as a pivot. The hilaria hoot of Pegger's wind-up. Festy's hilarious, boisterous ending.
Come jostles up against the triste tone of the Wet Pinters.
The sad tone of WP, the Wet Pinter. So you have hilarity bumping right into sadness. Festy sound versus WP sound.
And this immediately sets up the core idea, right? This duality.
Explicitly. Joyce quotes Bruno's motto, effectively. In tristitia hilaris, in hilaritate tristicis, in sadness cheerful, in cheerfulness sad. Then he lays out the theory. These two figures, Festy HCE and WP Shem, are is e il.
Latin for this one and that one?
Right. They are equals of opposites, and they've been evolved by a one same power, the Father maybe, or nature, or the universe itself.
And here's the key Bruno concept. They are polarized for reunion by the synthesis of their antipathies. That sounds complicated.
It's the core of Bruno's philosophy, and Joyce's use of it. Opposites aren't just opposites, they require each other to exist. They are polarized, pushed apart, in order to eventually come back together in a synthesis. Their conflict. The antipathies is actually the engine driving towards eventual reunion.
So the conflict we see throughout the book between the brothers, Shem and Shun, isn't just conflict. It's a necessary step towards some kind of resolution.
According to the theory, yes. The tension is the point. It's the cosmic law. Every force generates its opposite to manifest itself. HCE needs Shem WP to define himself, and vice versa.
Does this mean the original crime, the thing Festy is on trial for, doesn't really matter if the opposition is necessary anyway?
That's a brilliant point. It does seem to suggest that the crime becomes less a historical event and more like the necessary starting condition for this eternal cycle of opposition and synthesis. The judges should be confused about cause and effect because in this system, they're circular.
But Joyce adds a caveat, doesn't he? Even though they're polarized for reunion, their two destinies remain distinctly different.
Yes, that's the human reality tempering the cosmic law. Philosophically, they might be heading for synthesis, but in their lived experience, their paths are separate and often painful. The opposition is real, even if it serves a larger purpose.
Okay, so the philosophical framework is set. Now the focus shifts to WP, the son figure, who seems to be attracting attention while his father is disgraced, around 92.12.
Right. He's surrounded by the maidens of the bar, and there's a specific number mentioned, a perilous trentine, a lunarized score.
30 minus 1, 29. Or maybe 28, a lunar score.
Exactly. It suggests the leap year girls, often number 28 plus the one extra issy. They represent cyclical time, femininity, change, and they're fluttering around WP.
Who is called the willingly pressed? What does that suggest?
It connects him to Shun the postman. Shun the post, maybe. Pressed could mean forced into service, like being pressed into the Navy. Or like a pressed flower, delicate, preserved, maybe already fading. Or perhaps a martyr figure willingly taking on suffering.
And these girls seem to adore him. They nominate him for the Swiney Prize.
Which sounds nice, but given the whole pig is sacrifice theme we just discussed with Festy...
That sounds ominous. He's being marked as the next prize pig.
Very likely. It's praise that carries a threat. They also commend him for having all his senses about him, supposedly unlike his father.
But Joyce immediately undercuts that, doesn't he, in the very next lines?
Right away, the girls stick stinking hyacinths in his curls, not just hyacinths, which are strongly scented, but stinking ones.
And they bring busses or kisses to his cheeks.
So this image of sensory perfection is instantly tainted by decay, by an overpowering, unpleasant smell. The father's stench motif is already subtly transferring to the son.
And the affection seems a bit sinister. They are pizzicaglioling his woolly wags.
Pizzicagnolo, another brilliant word choice. It's Italian for a pork butcher, or someone who runs a delicatessen dealing in pork products.
So while they're petting him, tying bows, legando, they're metaphorically treating him like meat.
Precisely. The adoration is mixed with this underlying sacrificial, even cannibalistic vibe. Their love is framing him for the slaughterhouse, continuing that pig cycle. He's loved, but doomed by that love.
So WP's apparent triumph is already deeply compromised. Then the focus narrows again from the group of girls to just one, 92.24.
Yes. Gentia Gemma of the McGillicuddy Reeks, a play on McGillicuddy's Reeks and Carrie. She's a love-looking leap girl.
So this is Issy, the singular, shifting feminine figure associated with the 29th day, and she's all lonely.
Right. And WP is captivated by her. He's described as wan and pale in his unmixed admiration, completely smitten.
But here's where the sensory joke pays off. He's described as being blindly, mutely, tastelessly, tactlessly enamored.
Look at the senses listed there. Sight, blindly, speech hearing, mutely. Taste, tastelessly, touch, social grace, tactlessly.
They're all negated. He's lacking those four senses.
Which leaves
only smell, which we already know is associated with the stinking hyacinths. So the Kofik son is actually sensorily damaged, just like his father lacked touch in the deposition.
It's beautifully done structurally. His perfection is an illusion. He's reduced primarily to the sense of smell and likely overwhelmed by stench.
And it's in this state of flawed admiration that the identities start to merge, right? The shame of his hisu shifts into the shimmering of hers.
Yes. The shame, or maybe the issue, offspring problem associated with him, perhaps the Shem aspect of his nature, starts to dissolve or transform in the presence of Issy, the feminine principle, hers.
Shem, the shame figure, is being influenced by the female gaze.
Exactly. Desire is momentarily destabilizing the fixed opposition, and this leads to that final gorgeous image of fusion in this section.
The wild wish of her she melts into the dark deep of his Shun.
C is Irish for she, says Irish for he, and Shun clearly evokes Sean, WP's opposite brother. So through Issy, Shisha, the Shem aspect, shame, seems to momentarily merge with the Sean aspect, Shun.
A brief synthesis of the opposites. mediated by the feminine.
That's how it reads. A fleeting moment of reconciliation, a pause in the eternal conflict, driven by WP's infatuation with Issy. It's a lyrical pause before the final, brutal verdict and expulsion.
Right, which brings us to part 3, the verdict, the smell, and the shame. Starting around 92.33, the judges are still there.
Yes, the 4 old men, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, often represented here as the 4 masters or judges. They're named Untius, Muncius, Puntius, and Pilax.
Pontius and Pilax, Pontius Pilate in there again. And they're distracted.
Utterly distracted. And their distraction is described by that wonderfully circular, mind-bending question. Was not just this an effect, which had just caused that, the effect of that, which it had caused to occur.
Trying to untangle cause and effect.
Exactly. They're trapped in this recursive loop trying to figure out the original cause of Festy's transgression, but it's impossible because the rumors, the denials, the effects have completely obscured the cause. They're paralyzed by the complexity, which, ironically, saves Festy.
Because this paralysis leads to the verdict, a non-verdict, at 93.01. They issue their standing verdict of Nolans Brumans.
Nolans Brumans, it's genius. It sounds like a legal term, but it combines Nolans Volans Latin for unwillingly or willingly, obviously whether you like it or not, with Giordano Bruno of Nola.
Bruno again, whose own trial ended ambiguously, even though he was executed.
The outcome was clear execution, but the specifics of the verdict, the charges, were somewhat obscure, contested.
Right.
So Nolans Brumans suggests an unavoidable but fundamentally ambiguous judgment. The court essentially throws up its hands.
And Festy King is let off scot-free.
Scot-free, meaning free from payment or tax, but maybe also a pun on being free from the Scots or any clear judgment. He walks free, not proven innocent, but because the system failed to convict him.
How does he exit? Having murdered all the English he knew, mangled the language.
Shows empty pockets, the sign of the poor man.
But then there's a final gesture. He trails his tunic and shows off the blink pitch to his breeches.
The blink pitch could be a black patch, maybe referencing Joyce's own eye patch, or perhaps the white patch, the patcher associated with the Phoenix Park assassins, the Invincibles, a symbol of rebellion.
And he shows it to his breeches. That sounds like breeches, his backside.
Yeah.
But also breeches, British idiots.
Absolutely. It strongly implies he's mooning the court, turning his back on the whole system, showing his patched backside as a final, crude gesture of defiance, claiming this makes him a real genteel, a real gentleman.
So his freedom is marked by this incredibly vulgar anti-authoritarian act.
His final statement is pure contempt.
And the contempt continues, descending into actual smell. A Swiss papal guard asks him a polite Latin question.
Yes, the Swiss bodyguard asks something like, Commodore Valley O'Harry, Arthur Generosi. How are you today, noble Arthur gentleman? A standard formal inquiry.
And the response from the Firewater lover of booze, maybe with a hint of Waterloo,
is not verbal initially. It's a blast of stench, described as a vine-smelling 40 Tudor ages raw down hams tannuhide.
That sounds disgusting. Wine-smelling ancient raw hams, tan hide. Just, wow.
It's meant to be overpowering, but the real genius here is the hidden acronym.
Ah, yes, the famous one. F.A.R.T.
Embedded right there. 40 Tudor ages raw down hams tannuhide.
And this replaces a real historical motto, doesn't it?
It does. F.U.R.T, fortitudo eus Rhodanum tenuit. His strength has held the Rhone. It's a motto associated with the House of Savoy, a piece of noble European heraldry. Joyce completely deflates it, replaces this grand historical claim with the smell of decay and, well, a fart. History reduced to stench and vulgarity.
It's both incredibly childish and incredibly sophisticated literary sabotage.
Yeah.
And the smell is potent.
So potent it would turn the Latin stomach even of a Tumas Aquinas. Turn the Latin stomach of Thomas Aquinas.
Aquinas, known for his healthy appetite.
Exactly. Even the notoriously robust stomach of the great theologian couldn't handle Festy's foulness. It's a stench of total moral and physical corruption, and it's explicitly linked to gush-gash from a burner.
Referencing Joyce's own angry pamphlet, Gas from a Burner.
Yes, and maybe suggesting venereal disease too. Clapcap appears nearby. The source of the foulness is internal corruption, disease, anger.
This is finally too much for the women, the advocatesses. The 28 leap year girls again.
Seems so. Female advocates, they pull up their briefs. Could be legal briefs, could be underwear, a gesture of covering themselves, perhaps.
And they cry out, "Shun the pun man!"
This is a huge turning point. They shun Festy, the parish poser, the public figure, but by calling him the pun man, they inadvertently shift the focus and the shame onto Shem, the penman, the writer's son.
So the father's public disgrace becomes the burden, the source material for the exiled artist's son.
Precisely. The father escapes legal judgment, but inherits overwhelming shame, and that shame becomes Shem's defining characteristic.
The expulsion itself is quite physical. They soccered him home.
Yeah, kicked him home. Promptu right away Hames. Hames meaning home, but also a mess, and maybe a pun on James Joyce himself.
To drink battles, dingy dwellings.
Another wonderful name. Drink battle, like fighting with drink. Dingy dwellings. It evokes Dirty Dick's, a famously grubby Dublin pub, and maybe dear dirty Dublin itself. It's his final squalid destination.
And he's described now as completely broken, dove-timid, like the deer associated with Venus or Aeneas, or maybe Bottom from Midsummer Night's Dream, and a muddy goalbind.
A jailbird, a prisoner, but also maybe a muddy goalie in soccer, retreating in disgrace. And then the final confirmation, he has shat inzu, the ultimate bass act.
The final words belong to the crowd, the chassetti bells, chased bells.
Probably both. They shout him down with this incredible multilingual torrent of shame.
Honor, F.A.R.T now, Puter, scam, shams, shames.
It's like a global inventory of disgrace. French haunt shame, Italian vergogna, shame, maybe Latin now from nausea, Latin puter, stench, decay, Danish scam, German sham, shame, but also genitals.
Wow. Shame, stench, shame, genital shame. It's overwhelming.
It is, and it all comes down to the final accusation. You and your gift of your gaft of your garbage about our farver, your rubbish about our father, God, or maybe HCE himself.
So the father figure is expelled not by law, but by universal, multilingual, stinking shame.
That's the final verdict. Legal acquittal, moral annihilation. And that shame is the legacy passed down.
Incredible. Just 3 pages?
Yeah.
But we've gone from a farcical trial to Bruno's philosophy, Irish myth, political commentary, and ended with this overwhelming sense of global shame focused on the father figure.
And the key insight, I think, is how the failure of the official system, the court's inability to issue a clear verdict with Nolans Brumans, actually becomes the catalyst. It frees the father physically, but condemns him morally.
And in doing so, locks the sons, Shem and Shun, into their cycle of opposition, fueled by this inherited shame.
Exactly. The shame expressed in those final lines is the energy driving the rest of the book's dynamic.
So for you listening, hopefully this deep dive shows how even in the most chaotic, seemingly nonsensical passages, Joyce is building these really tight structures. Understanding the polarity Festy's fall, enabling WP's tragic role, is his brief moment of synthesis. It's crucial for seeing how the whole book works as a system reflecting on shame and identity.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. We talked about that cause and effect loop that paralyzes the judges. Was not just this in effect, which had just caused that, the effect of that which it had caused to occur.
Right, they can't find the starting point.
So if the father's original cause, his actual transgression, remains forever lost in rumor and denial, what does that mean for the effect, the duality of the sons? Is their opposition a fixed reality? Or are they, too, just caught in that loop, endlessly repeating the cycle of shame, searching for a cause that might be fundamentally unknowable?